Okay, Mabiora, I can see your back.
Yes.
Okay, so I can see Evans. Okay. So I want to go now ahead and explain that the 4W. Can you all hear me? Mabir, can you hear me? Just text me if you can hear me. So Evans is trying to connect. Okay, Sawa. Thank you, Phyllis. I can see that you can all hear. So I want to go ahead and explain the 4 W's, yeah? The 4 W's where we said the first W refers to who, what, where, when, and why. So for example, when you're calling people for a meeting, okay, yeah, it is important for you to consider those 5 W's. Yeah, for example, when is this meeting? Yeah, who is it that you are planning to invite? Yeah, who is going to be your audience? Yeah, the other thing that you also need to understand, to ask yourself, what is it that is going to be discussed? What is the agenda of this meeting? Then where will it be? Yeah, where means what? Where are you going to conduct this meeting? Maybe you can choose a particular venue. Yeah, so you need to indicate that we are going to have the meeting in room 5 or room 6. Then also it's important for you to ask yourself, when in terms of what? When do you plan to hold this meeting? For example, this is now where you need to state the dates. Yeah, maybe 12th September 2022 at 2 p.m. And also why. Yeah, what is it that you are planning to achieve at the end of this meeting, or what is it that is going to be discussed? So what am I trying to say? When you talk about the principle of completeness, it is important for you to understand, and more so when you're sharing information, ensure that you give complete, yeah, information that is required, so that the receiver has enough information for them to give a substantial feedback. Okay. Then I also want us to talk about the principle of conciseness. Yeah, the principle of conciseness. Conciseness. Now, this is a very important principle. And this is also, as I said earlier, these principles are very important when it comes to written communication. I don't know, but I tend to presume sometimes when you are, okay, let me admit somebody there, sorry. Okay, yeah, so when you're sending information, okay, when you're sending information, it is important that when you send this information, you need to consider the reader's time, the readers now in this case is the receiver. Now, you've never gotten to receive a letter that is so lengthy. Yeah, remember, we're all human beings. Sometimes we don't have a lot of time to read a lot of information, and more so depending now with the feedback that is required. So when you're writing, yeah, it is important for you to consider the reader in terms of the time that they will take before they are able to understand what you're saying. So reader's time means what? When you decide to communicate in writing, yeah, ensure, and this is something that we shall look at when you're talking about, for example, letters. Yeah, a good letter should be very brief. Why is it? Should it be brief? Because you don't want to give the receiver a lot of unnecessary time before they're able to understand what you want. So this principle of conciseness is very important, and therefore it is important that when you're communicating, you only stick to the relevant information that you plan to pass. So conciseness means that you should ensure that the receiver of this information has got very minimum time, because it is very normal. You don't want to take a lot of time reading a long report, but also you also don't want to assume that whatever has been written in that report is actually important. So it is important when you decide to communicate, ensure that you're very brief and to the point, so that the receiver does not get to, the receiver is not bored or decides to dismiss certain information, perhaps, which could be very, very important, but because your correspondence, Evans, you can't hear me. And also, okay, Anita, also you can't hear? I can't hear you, Evans. Let me admit him again. Mabior and Phyllis, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
And Phyllis?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I've asked, let me admit Christine. I hope they should be able to hear me by now. Okay. Yeah, so how do you ensure that when you're practicing, okay, let me admit, sorry. Yeah, how do you ensure, like now this principle of the principle of conciseness, yeah, you should be able to ask certain questions, yeah, like for example, you need to use simple, make sure that you use only relevant information, avoid repetition, yeah. Also use, organize your message well. And how do you organize your message well? Is by using of simple words. So admit, just hold on a sec. Okay, now we will go to the other principle that we call the principle of consideration. Yeah, just as the word says, consideration is a very important principle. Christine, can you mute? Hi, Evans. Evans, how are you? Okay, all right. Okay, I can see him. All right, so I think he can hear now. Okay, now this principle of consideration, just as the word suggests, is also another principle, and it also shows some consideration to the reader. Now, these principles, in most cases, they affect the reader. The reader is the receiver. The receiver also is the recipient. Yeah, remember we defined when we were talking about the communication process, yeah, where we said we are the sender, who we said is the originator of the information. Then we mentioned about the receiver, and we said we do not define a receiver as the person who receives messages. The receiver is the recipient, or the person for whom the message is intended for. Therefore, these principles, the 6 principles, actually favor the receiver, or the person that we are calling the reader. Now, this principle of consideration also talks about the reader. And then how is it that we show consideration to the reader? Number 1 is to adapt the principles of, especially like when you're writing letters, yeah, adapt the you attitude. Remember when you're writing a letter, when you okay, which I'm sure now this is something we have not done, but this is something now that I'm going to take you through. Like, for example, when you're writing a letter, it is important that you know, it is very normal when we write letters, we talk about ourselves, we, yeah, but now in this circumstance, when you are addressing a reader, it is good to give a lot of emphasis on the reader by referring, or by choice, or using words like you. Yeah, the correct word, like you. Yeah, like for example, thank you, not we thank. Thank you. Yeah, where you tend to appreciate the reader more, unlike yourself as the sender. So the you attitude is more so when it comes to written communication, where the choice of words reflect mostly on the reader and not on ourselves, or not on the sender. So we have a way of trying to do that, and this is important. And the other way you can show consideration to the reader is by being impartial. Yeah, impartial means what? Showing integrity. Yeah, showing integrity is perhaps the best way of showing consideration. Yeah, remember we mentioned about integrity in an ethical, or in ethical behaviors, or in ethical communication, where we said we show integrity by being honest. Yeah, by being honest to ourselves, by being fair, by not being dismissive. Dismissive is where you try to cut off, or where you try to, you know, to have an opinion about somebody. Yeah, so we show consideration when we practice the principles of integrity, and more so in ethical communication. Then you also have got another principle that you call courtesy. Now, have you ever applied for a job and it takes the other party, the party means the organization that you're applying, a very long time before they're able to respond to your letter? Or have you ever written an email and you do not get the response immediately? So that time while you're waiting to get that feedback, you know, it could be a job. So you're very anxious. You don't know whether they are going to consider you for this position or not. Sound's not working, please. I can't hear you from my side. I think it is Evans. Evans, please connect the audio. Sorry about that, Evans. Yeah, so connect the audio well. So what am I trying to say about the principle of courtesy? What I'm trying to say is that when you send information, yeah, and this is a very good example, even on our mobile phones, yeah, when you send a message to people and somebody does not respond to what you exactly had requested them, yeah, and more so in WhatsApp, you know, it's sometimes it can be a bit, you know, hurting. You write a message to somebody, you realize that they have read it, but they have not responded to your information that you wanted them. Yeah, it makes you feel very bad, you feel like the person is not interested to communicate that information. So under the principle of courtesy, it is very important to respond to correspondences on time. For example, if you receive a letter today, let's assume today is a working day, yeah, today being 28th, how long should it take for you to respond to that letter? Yeah, that is now how we show courtesy. We show courtesy by responding to any communication promptly. Promptly means what? Within the shortest time possible. So we show courtesy by responding to letters promptly. We also show courtesy by apologizing. I will also show you how to write an apology letter. Sometimes customers have reasons why they complain. And in most cases, they normally write complaint letter. I'll also show you how to write a complaint letter. But now in this particular instance, we show courtesy by being apologetic. For example, if a customer had written a complaint letter, we should be able to write back and show some level of remorsefulness or some level of regrets. Yeah, and there's nothing as bad as, you know, having complaints and nobody gets back to you. Yeah, so we show courtesy in communication or when you are writing through apologizing. Yeah, if there's a need or there's a reason why something happened, it is good for us to communicate on time. And lastly, the last principle is what you call the principle of correctness. Yeah, I know there's a complete. Complete means giving all the information that is desired. Then now we have the principle of correctness. Yeah, correctness. Let me type that. Now, this principle is very important. Yeah, very important. Sorry, correctness. This principle is very important because when you communicate, it is important to give all the information that you require. But even as you give all the information that you require, it is important to give facts. Yeah, correct. Correct means you're giving the exact information that is required. So you give facts. How do we show this principle of correctness? Is by ensuring that we give the correct facts. Correct fact means that we give the information that is required. For example, if you're writing a warning letter, okay, and now you're writing a warning letter to an employee who has been coming to work late. Yeah, so you need to show, yeah, records of certain consistency that would warrant you to give this warning letter. You cannot give a warning letter just on the first time. Yeah, so you need to give a sequence of certain incidences that had happened previously, and therefore as a result of that, you feel that this person needs to be given a warning letter. So this is now where you have to give correct facts. So it's important for you to ensure that you give two correct facts. Then also ensure that you send out information at the correct time. Yeah, Correct time means what? At the most appropriate time. When we talk about appropriate time, it's now under the principle of courtesy. Yeah, you should be able to respond to information within the shortest time possible. And I've given you reasons sometimes what happens when you don't send information fast. Maybe the information that I needed at that time, I needed to do something. So by the time you're sending this information, perhaps this information will be outdated. Yeah, or sometimes this information might involve money. Yeah, so maybe by the time you are sending your information at a time that is not correct, this information might not actually serve the purpose for which it was intended to. And lastly, we show the principle of correctness by ensuring that we send our messages in the correct styles. Now, I'm also going to show you the different styles, but I think I was able to show you this when we did the summary writing, where we said we have got two styles of writing summary. You can use indented style, or we can use block style. Now, the same principle also is applicable when we are talking about correctness. Correctness means what? You use a correct format, yeah, a correct layout. You cannot afford to use both. You cannot use both indented and also blocked style. So when we talk about the correct style, it is important for us to ensure that you are able to follow the correct layout of the information that you plan to send. Now, these 4 principles are very important. These 4 principles are very important. And I have seen questions, I have seen next questions asking us to define these principles and how they are applicable, yeah, how they are applicable in communication. Yeah, so these principles, it is important for you to get to know them. It is important for you to get to know them. Like, for example, I have a question here that says, I'm going to type it. Explain how the principles of communication assist in ensuring that the barriers to communication are avoided. Yeah, explain how the principles of communication assist in ensuring that the barriers to communication are avoided. And then I've also seen lists for uses of the principles of communication. Okay, then there's also another one, lists for principles, principles of communication. So now when you ask to list the 4 principles, this is now where you talk about the 6 C's. Yeah, so why are these principles important? And now they've also asked us how we can use this principle to avoid the barriers to effective communication. Okay, so that is what I wanted to share with us today. And maybe, unless there's somebody who has a question, maybe I can allow you to unmute yourself and maybe you can ask a question.
Okay, are we having cat tomorrow?
Mabior,
Yep.
can I disappoint you?
Yes, I'm ready.
Let me type.
Okay.
Have I answered you?
Yeah, I got you.
But maybe we can start at 5 o'clock, maybe 5:30.
At 5:30, right?
Yeah. I think I want to have them at a time that we are all around, so that we can all end at the same time.
All right.
Yeah. So and for me, I set a card that I know I have taught. Yeah. So you don't have to get worried. Maybe like what I have taught today, I might not set it because that might be too soon. So whatever else I had taught, yeah, from last, or from the last lesson, is what you should be expecting. And anyway, the card is actually out of 30%. So it's not something that you should be worried of, but also it's important for us to ensure that we read through. Yeah. So we shall have the cards tomorrow at 5:30.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything, Christine, Phyllis? Christine, maybe you can unmute yourself, and Phyllis.
Okay, for me,
Yes.
I'm okay. I've understood, and I thank you. I'll prepare for tomorrow's cut.
Okay, sawa. Thank you so much, Phyllis, for also getting time to come. Maybe Christine?
I'm also okay.
Yes.
And also ready for tomorrow's cut.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a cut we should all be able to do in 30 minutes. It's a cut we should all be able to do in 30 minutes. Yeah. So it's something that, it's something comfortable. You don't have, but it's important for you to read through. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Okay. So unless there's no any other question, I would wish to end this video. Now, what I will do, I am going to download this video into YouTube, and I'm going to share the link for you. In case you need to listen, you can always listen there.
All right.
Yeah, so let me wish you a very nice evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow too.
Okay, thank you so much for having gotten time to come. I really appreciate.
You too. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, my dear.
We appreciate.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye. See you.
Bye.
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 Bye.